$25 from you, the supermarket cashier said seductively. David had already counted out the necessary amount and handed it over to her. As he left the store, he lit a cigarette, needing to go home. He found himself in this area for the first time, which was quite depressing in the fall. Graffiti with foul language adorned some shop windows, garbage bags littered the streets, and overall, the people here were not pleasant. David was in this area for work. One of his colleagues fell ill, but his signature on the documents was urgently needed to send the goods to another country. David was incredibly tired that day and wanted to go home quickly. He wanted to call a taxi, but as he reached into his pocket, he realized that he had left his last bit of money in the store. Since David didn't know the area at all, he decided to walk to the nearest bus stop, which was visible behind a small park. It was already quite dark outside when he reached the stop, but apparently no one was in a hurry to turn on the streetlights in this area. He needed to get to at least the city center, from where he knew the way to his home. Damn Metropolis, he muttered. For 20 minutes, there was no sign of any transportation. David began to wonder, is this even a real bus stop? The bus schedule board shining in the distance dispelled David's fears. The symbols on the board were illegible, apparently broken. This did not bother David at all. On the contrary, it seemed funny. He jumped on the bus as soon as its doors opened. After paying his fare and entering the cabin, he met the gaze of two strong guys sitting behind him. David felt uneasy and sat by the door, staring at the dark street through the dirty bus window. A girl got on at the next stop. The bus was shaking slowly, but there were no stops for about 10 minutes, and the reflection of the bus interior was the only thing visible through the window. Only now did it occur to David to ask the driver where the final stop of this bus was and how long it would take to get there. As he reached for the handrail to stand up, a loud scream from the girl pierced his ears. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw one of the strong guys grabbing her, while the other moved towards David. He had no choice but to defend himself. Feeling for the key to his apartment in his pocket, he clenched it between his fingers. When the attacker approached, David quickly pulled out his hand and tried to strike, but something stopped his movement. It was the driver, grabbing David's hand. In a hurry, David did not notice that the bus had stopped. Trying to break free, he felt a sharp pain in the back of his head, which instantly spread throughout his body. David's body fell to the floor, and he lost consciousness. Sand grains hit the metal body of the bus. David woke up. Darkness surrounded him, and only through small holes in the bag could he see a small flicker of the bus lamp. Quiet voices in front of him were talking about something. He began to listen carefully. "Today was an excellent fishing trip," one of them sneered. "You can't do better," replied the other in a hoarse voice. From the sound outside, David realized that calling for help was useless. "My phone. I need to try to dial 911. A thought flashed through David's foggy mind. He tried to slowly reach for his pocket, but apparently his hands were tightly tied behind his back. The injury David suffered was quite serious, so after a couple of minutes, he lost consciousness again. The cold wind hit David in the face. He woke up to find two people dragging him in an unknown direction. After some time, he found himself in a room with a bag removed from his head. He could only see the back of one of the guys who had attacked him on the bus. The room was about 10 square meters with yellow walls and stains. Only one flickering light bulb illuminated the room. David noticed that his hands were not tied behind his back. He jumped off the stool and tried to open the door, but it was locked. Suddenly, something massive hit the door, shaking the floor. David retreated, grabbed the stool, and threw it on the ground. He armed himself with the sharpest stick and waited for what was coming. The door burst open, and a creature rushed into the room. David heard heavy breathing and struck the unknown creature with his stick. A terrifying scream filled the room as David ran out of the open door. He ran down a dark corridor until he saw a room with a lit bulb. He entered and saw the same girl from the bus, or what was left of her. The walls were covered in blood, and she was unrecognizable except for her face. David was shocked and did not know what he had encountered. Suddenly the walls began to shake again, and David saw a hole in the wall. He ran towards it and saw a monster with black holes instead of eyes, scaly skin, and sharp teeth arranged in a circle around its mouth. It moved on long, very thick limbs. The creature grabbed David by the leg and began tearing him to pieces. He screamed so loudly and terribly that it seemed like it was not a human making such sounds. The next day, David's and the girl's remains were found at a suburban bus stop. People who found them were horrified. Medical experts concluded that they were attacked by wild dogs, and that broken bus with a missing sign might still be roaming the city.